Romeo, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another.
Thank you, Saul, for having me
webinar.
here. How's everything?
All good, all good. Lovely to see you again, and really thankful that you've given us your time here. So everybody, thanks for joining us again for another Coaching Family, My Personal Football Coach webcast. As we're really fortunate to have Romeo Jozak here, one of the most experienced youth developers in the game. So he's going to share a little bit about the secret of developing Champions League players the Croatian way. So without further ado, Romeo, do you want to crack on and get started with your presentation, please?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thanks again, Saul, for having me here. I've been following your webinars, and I must say it's amazing. It's always nice to be a part of the group of the coaches, of the family, of the people that are sharing the knowledges in these, I would say, strange times, the COVID times, unpredictable times. We're all having the unique opportunity to be in a history, I would say. I hope everybody, first of all, is safe, keeping safe in these COVID times. I hope everyone's going to get back together as soon as possible, so we see each other in person and start sharing knowledges and not having these webinars as much anymore, but to see each other in person and then continue with education.
Lovely.
So do I...
Yeah, just go for it. You're on.
Okay, as I said, I'm happy to be with you just to share the experience, to share the information about Croatia. I don't know where all the coaches following this, but as I say, we're all on the same page right now with these tough times, trying to focus at homes as much as we can. But about the football, I have a privilege to present the topic that we chose together, and is developing Champions League players. Croatia has been, for a while, really, I would say, well known and appreciated for the development of the players. Up until 2 years ago, when we did what we did in Russia, I think everybody stepped in a lot more. In Croatia, huge interest, a lot of phone calls, a lot of interest for the academies, for the clubs, for everybody. So, as I say, capital city, population 4.2 million, number of the clubs, number of the registered players, not too much, 100,000. So we got to be really, going to see later on in the presentation, we got to be really careful with the player selection, with the talent selection, identification of the talents, because we can't afford to lose any single talent in a small country that we have. I'm going to start with a video that has been recorded 25 years ago about the Croatian player. You probably all know who this player is. He's one of the unique players in the world that played, Croatian players, I think only Croatian player that played both for Real Madrid and for Barcelona. Just a bit of a glance, just a bit of a hint to what the football looked like. Maybe not to the extreme, but he played like that for sure. But as a fact that he played for both Barcelona and Madrid must have made him a good player, and definitely one of the biggest players in the history of Croatia, for sure. So playing for the two biggest clubs, or nearly two biggest clubs in the world, definitely made him a great player. However, I think we all agree that it wasn't that time ago, a long time ago, 25 years ago, and the football was definitely different. On the first glance, we see something doesn't feel right here, right, anymore. If you compare him to let's say, the biggest player we have in history for sure right now, with the basic facts of how he's been played, the number of the touches per possession over 5, at least 5, if not more on the average, less than 2, definitely on Luka Modric's side, and average time per possession 4 and something seconds per possession, and less than 2 seconds per possession 25 years afterwards. We see that football has changed a lot. As I say, I'm not saying anything against anything or in favor. I'm just saying the football has definitely changed. And we all got to be aware that those changes are there. As I said 2 years ago, everybody knows it's something what changed our lives as a football people, not only football people overall, but change our lives overall. In Russia 2 years ago, obviously everybody was famous. I think you guys all saw the footage and the video of the reception of the players in Croatia. It was crazy. It was something that never happened. We'll see. Maybe going to happen sometime, hopefully in the future again. But it didn't happen before that. But let's see how it all went before that with the Croatian national team. In South Africa 2010, we didn't qualify. Why I started with 2010, because this is pretty much a similar or the same team that were there starting in South Africa. Luka Modric was at that time, he was 22, so young player, still prospect playing, but we didn't qualify in Africa. Euro 2012, Poland, Ukraine, we were in a group with the both finalists, Italy and Spain. We got kicked out of the group stage in the Euro. Brazil World Cup 2014 group stage with Brazil, with Mexico in the group, also didn't move on over there, also huge disappointment. But that cycle, we did something significantly, which I was very, very, very happy and proud about as a technical director. We qualified for the both youth World Cups in Turkey 2013 U20 and in the Emirates 2013 for the U17, being at that time the only world nation that qualified for the all three World Cups in this cycle. Obviously something significantly meaning that we're going to be doing something in the future. I would say very, very important. For me, that was very important thing to actually have those alongside with this. The next Euro in France, 2016, we got kicked out of the against Portugal in a round of 16. Lucky, unlucky, people comment this and that, but that was 2 years ago before the Russia. Not being completely happy, but we kind of all had a feeling, listen, we were close, not making it, unlucky, but we were very close. Up until the Russia, everybody knows how it ended, and it was something significantly specific for all of us. We were all, as I say, proud and happy taking place and happening. Let's move on to the topic closer that we're here for. In Russia, one club had the highest number of the homegrown players and the players played for the club overall. Out of all the national teams, one club. And that is this club. So 10 homegrown players and 14 players for the club played from this club in a Russia World Cup. This is 2013, winning the Manchester United Premier Cup World Finals. Out of these players here, a couple of them already playing the senior football very, very seriously. So something significantly, even for this small club or smaller club on a world scale, showed something's gonna happen here. Last 15 years of the transfers, I was the academy director at that time. It started all in 2006. Those are all the players that got transferred and sold from the club to the various clubs in the world. Now, if you can put, just on a first glance, if you want to put the starting lineup here, the Dynamo, let's say 1, you have the last defense life of the today's national team. You have Brozovic from Inter, Luka and Kovacic from Chelsea, Mandzukic, Kramaric, Piazza. So imagine if these players stayed in club. I'm pretty sure maybe not winning the Champions League, but definitely being very close to it. The second, let's say, the squad, or Dynamo 2, Eduardo da Silva ended up in the Arsenal, Badel, Shimunovic, Jedvaj. So players that have actually playing significant role, and other 20 players has been sold from the club in the last 15 years, gaining over, not going to go into the figures, into the numbers as much, but a whole lot money for the club as well. The Croatian system, I use the word system because system for me describes the order, describes the structure. Those 4 things are most important. If any of these things is not there, the system is not going to work. And obviously, each one of them is equally important. People are going to say, yes, the players are more important. I think, yes, I agree. The player is the most important. But without all these other components, it just will not work to the extent. So let's try to analyze all these four components. We're going to focus at the end on the development program, which for me is also, if not the most important thing. Player. talent identification of the player in Croatia, I think like all the phenomena and all the things in the world, when you look at it from the general point of view, they have the normal distribution, equally being distributed in the population. And for us in Croatia, we've analyzed the situation in some countries, what happened a couple of years ago, and based on these things, we were trying to learn that when you see the players that have succeeded in their career, in the quarters, in the age they have been born in, you see that the most of the players that succeeded in the career later on have been born in the first 3 months of the given year. Only 10% have been born in October, November, and December. And if you have the equal distribution of the talent, which should be, which it is definitely, it is very hard to understand that only 10% of the players, talented players, are born in the October, November, and December, which I think it doesn't make much of a sense. I think from these evidences, these experiences, not only us, but all these countries also learn for themselves. They also try to correct these mistakes, because I think it is just self-explanatory that not the biggest talents are being born in the first 3 months in the year, that something is wrong with the talent selection in general like that. So the same thing in Croatia. We've been very, very, very careful. As I said, we have 100,000 only registered players in the country. If you start from the first age group that actually gets officially registered under the umbrella of the federation, we have only 6,000 registered players. Not too much. So from U8, we got to be very careful not to lose a single player from the age group to the age group to the age group, coming up until the 250 roughly players that are playing in the first Croatian division, in order to get there to the top. Now, I will try to be a little plastic. I will try to be a little metaphoric. But in 3 photos, I will try to describe the biggest, for me, component that the player has to have in order to be an excellent player. Photo number 1, photo number 2, and photo number 3. I think you all that are following this webinar right now are too long in football to know that I'm not being completely direct with this, that you have to have your head bloody in order to succeed, but you have to be ready to go with your head against somebody else's cleats in order to achieve that. If you have all the skills of the world, if you have all the agility of the world, if you have all the technical abilities of the world, and if you don't have the passion and the readiness to go against somebody else's cleats with your head, you will be a good player because of your talent, but you will never make it to the top of the world as you maybe could have if you had this passion deep down. Yes, people are saying, yes, Croatian players, they have this extra passion. I would agree to the extent, but just this example of these 3 famous players, everybody knows about them, the passion they have inside, everybody's talking about their qualities as a football players. Not too many people is talking about their mental qualities, about their passion they have inside to fight for the sport that they're playing. If we go more realistic, obviously, then we see the motor functional domain consists of situational speed, agility, strength, endurance, and have to be smart about the late developers, about the early developers, about I know a lot of national teams, a lot of clubs in the world are really being extra careful, as we are as well, about the late developers as well, having the teams also organized on the side for those guys to be not forgotten, because we got to be careful about what we just saw a little while ago about those months, because of the late developers. Maybe they're going to catch up later on and be there when you want them. Also, being in Croatia, as I said, they call us Brazilians of Europe. I'm not going to say is realistic, not realistic, but that's a fact. I heard that millions of times when I traveled the world. They call us that we can handle the ball. We're very technical. We play the football the nicest. No offense, obviously, whatsoever towards anyone, but these are the attributes we're getting. The range of the technical elements, the functional application of these elements, the accuracy and the speed of executing technical elements, the quality of decision making, speed of decision making, ability to adapt the already chosen solution. All these things are very, very, very important. A lot of them are genetical, with a genetic determination, but not all of them. So we had to be very careful when we identifying talent. What do we do in this regard? Also, obviously, think that we started with personality traits, persistence in the extreme conditions. You got to be really persistent and not giving up, tolerance to the pressure because it gets very tough later on. Stability and quality of execution, those things are very actually easy to keep up. How stable you are in your performance in a game level, in the league level, in the season level. Aggressiveness, courage, all these things, very learning the ability and adaptability to the team. All these talent identification components are very important. As I say, we can't afford to lose any single talent here in Croatia because we don't have too many people overall. Number two, coach. Everybody's talking about licenses. I was the technical director of Federation, being in charge for the educational part as well, overseeing the whole process. The licenses are extremely important nowadays because this is the license, this is the diploma, it's a recognition, it's an accomplishment. Without this, you can't join, you can't sign the contract. It's a requirement. But I've seen a lot of doctors with the same diplomas, but when I have a problem with my ankle, there's one or two people that everybody's talking about. You know, why don't you go to this guy? Everybody has the same diploma. So it's really a pro license only, don't get me wrong, only the demand that you have to have in order to be considered a great coach. On this photo, generally there's 50 coaches, out of which with a pro license, all of them. Only one of them made it to the top level. 3 of them are getting close, and all the other ones are still struggling. If everybody, if it's only about a pro license, then something is definitely not there. So it has to be something more than only a license. Obviously, I'm encouraging licensing process. I'm a part of this. I was a member of the UEFA technical committee, and I know how this important is. What I'm trying to say, when we have the talent identification of the coach, it's not only what we are after if we want to find a good coach. We are looking for something else, at least here in Croatia. Personality. So starting with the kids 7 to 11, you got to have the personality of the animator. So coach has to have the animating personality. Yes, do the job. Yes, teach the player. Yes, learn together with them. But being the animator, having fun with the kids, also at the same time trying to cheat them. When I say cheat them, don't get me wrong, not cheating them in a bad way, but trying to make them learn without they know that they're actually learning. This is how good of the animator you got to be there to do that. At the ages 12 and 16, it's a teaching personality, methodologist, people that are actually studying, really go step by step, making sure that it's a little school there already. Whereas at the U17s, you got to have the competitor personality. So being the fighter, I've seen here in Croatia many times we corrected those mistakes where the competitors got completely misdirected into the sevens area where they didn't survive for too long. Where the animating personality tries to be a coach on a tough level, it doesn't work that way. You got to have this inside of the personality. Implementation of the demands for something for me extremely important. Nowadays, later on, we're going to talk about that as well. You can find any given drill on the planet. You have it on YouTube, on all these Facebooks and places around. Drill is not the point for me. The point is the demand inside of the drill. The coach, if you have the coach that is going to be forcing and taking and being persistent on demands, they're going to make a whole change. The players are going to develop no matter what if they're in the environment. But if you have the coach that are actually forcing the demands into the drill, this is the improvement that they're going to make in the different age groups. And if you have really a coach that are going to be really on every single demand, correcting, talking, teaching, demonstrating, being there, covering the whole process, not just giving the drill and not just, okay, this is the drill, you guys do it or you guys play it, it's not going to do good. So being demandful, having the implementation of demands is for us, for the selection of the coaches, one of the extremely important parameters in a talent identification. Stability in execution. You know, it's nice to be coach, to taking photos. I had the privilege not to be only director. I was the head coach of one big club. I was the head coach of the national team. It's nice to be on the stage in front of the cameras, but you got to have the stability and execution in the rain, in the snow, in the heat, when you like it, when you don't like it, when they're for you, when they're against you. When you get to the top level, it's going to be really ups and downs. You got to have the stability in your head, in your mental performance to keep keeping up with all these things, to literally survive. If you're going to one day like it, the other day in the morning you're going to say, listen, I don't like it, or I'm not feeling for it, especially implementing demands, it's not going to be good for the coach and for the program and for the kids overall. Emotional intelligence, something when you get higher and higher in the structure, becomes extremely important. Understanding the players' needs. When I started as a coach in the youth, a lot of different things were important. Later on, when you get to the senior level, tactics becomes very important. Emotional, social intelligence. How you're going to have the level of the empathy, understanding the player. How you're going to control the energy. How you're going to direct the team energy. How you're going to prevent all the things, reading the things in between the lines. Without that, things don't work on a top level. Sense for the play, obviously, at the end, game understanding, or the talent for the game, to understanding the actual game, is obviously, maybe that should have been on number one. Maybe the license should be in the last one. You can shift it around however you want, but those are the things that we've chosen to be very important in the talent identification of the coaches in Croatia. Competition, quickly about that as well. I think, especially in the development of the youth, it's extremely important when you have the already system to compete in. As you know, we're the European Union right now. Our players can get bought, can get transferred starting from the age of 16 and on, completely being okay to register for the club in Europe. And believe me, there's a lot of fishing of the big fish. The big fish eats the small fish all the time. And we got to be, careful protecting our players from the big fish, at least for the time. And then later on, obviously, we're going to be transferring them. So the reason I'm saying this, because we have a first Croatian division, which consists of the 10 clubs, Dynamo Zagreb, Hajduk Split, two biggest names. This is the spread of Croatia, Hajduk and Rijeka, two also other big clubs. But if you see those figures, the average age, Croatia, we belong to one of the youngest leagues in Europe. Why is that? Because none of the good players that are having the quality good enough, they don't get to live up until the age 20 to 21 before they get transferred to Europe. This is how it is. And all the clubs are realizing that, and that's why they're forcing the young players. So for development of the young player, the league is very good. A lot of young prospects in it. But as I said, whoever does something, because the clubs are playing the European competitions as well, they get transferred. And you've seen the figures in Dynamo Zagreb transfers in the last 15 years, how it goes to this regard. Something for me, which we implemented when we were in a federation, the B teams are playing in a second and a third league. I think it's very important for the adaptation to the senior demands of the football. Second division is semi-professional, so it's actually already getting very serious. You know why I'm saying the competition is very, very important, because the National League of the U19s consists of 12 clubs, National League of the U17s, and National League of the U15s is the polygon, the structure where the players are competing against each other, and especially this part is allowing the clubs the scene to see how good they really actually are at the age of 15, already trying to sign some contracts, not allowing for them to be sold or taken literally, re-registered up until the age of 16 and on. So I'm thinking this move, getting the National League on the national level, was very well appreciated for the whole nation, because we have the major and the big filter of the talent at this age, where we already tried to get to know, I would say, trying to minimize the mistake of the talent identification on this level already, because if you wait up until here, it's already too late. Those guys are already being taken by somebody somewhere. Development program, together with my assistants, my associates, we came up with the book 3 years ago. I think many of you have already heard of it, which I was really extremely happy about. I'm not going to say that the Croatian national team that did what they did in Russia have followed the principles in this book, But this book summarized all the principles that there were and that there are in Croatia in the last 10, 15 years, starting from Dynamo Academy and all these academies around. Ever since then, it has become one of the major documents in Croatia that a lot of clubs are working with. And as I said, Happy has also a good reputation in the world as a book for the development curriculum. When I was presenting before, a lot of coaches asked me, we want to hear the drills, we want to see the drills. I'm not going to talk about the drills today. Yes, there are going to be few drills, but I would rather want us and want you and want us to understand why we do something and when we do something, and the understanding of the whole thing, and we're going to go into some tricky topics today that are extremely important for me, for Croatia, that I also felt some things happening and potential changes, and we corrected them on the way. That's why I'm gonna try to go deeper into the analysis, why to do something and when to do something. And then drills, we're gonna find them. We're gonna talk about the drills later on as much as we can on one of the next webinars if we want. Let's see what it looks like in the world nowadays. The analysis that we did, actually FIFA did it and we copied it, is that 260 million people play football today. Maybe a few more, a few less, but this is the great figure. Registered, unregistered, amateurs, old, young, female, male, everything overall, 265 million people playing football in the world, out of which in UEFA 62 million. Registered 38 million in the world, in UEFA 21 million registered players, out of which professionals in the world 113 million, 113,000, and there is 60,000 registered professionals playing, so players that are living off football playing in UEFA. I took UEFA because I know it the most, and I'm going to try to make comparison on these numbers. Why I'm saying this? People consider us to be a technical nation, and we really are, and I'm proud of that, and we focus on that. And in order to actually keep up with this reputation, we really went deeply into the analysis. How do we get even better in this technical performance that we have? So when we analyze the fact, and I think a lot of the coaches lately is asking the questions of that, if you have one player, he can do everything with his better foot. He's so dominant. We should be focusing for extremely developing and improving only the better foot skills, because this is how they do it. So in our consideration, we've analyzed the strong dominance of the better foot if he is taking 9 out of 10 times the solution with their better foot. That means 10 times they get the ball, 9 times they're going to go and reach it with the better foot. That's a strong comfort zone. That's a strong subconscious comfort zone when there's a strong dominance of the better foot. So let's see who are the names on the planet nowadays. We should all know about all these names, right? They're really dominant with their better foot only, falling in this filter and this criteria. Number one, definitely this guy everybody knows about. I would say Neymar is one of those guys. I would say Di Maria falls into this structure. I would see Beckham, not playing anymore, but he was one of those guys that 9 out of 10 times he was doing and being successful. This is the criteria. So being successful, yes, they're going to be doubled up. Yes, they're going to be protected, but they're going to still, most of the times, take care of the problems and giving the solutions only using their better foot. Who else do we have? Robben was maybe one of those guys, I would agree. Bale is one of those guys, I would agree. Who else? We don't have the communication right now. That's one of the problems, but later on I'm gonna definitely want to hear some questions. Maybe Ibrahimovic more, maybe Hazard, maybe. So there's 7, 8, 10 players that can make a difference, that can literally not survive being the best ones, using their strong dominance of the better foot only, not caring as much about their weak foot. So that's 10 players. Let it be 20. Let it be even 30 if we're going to come up with them. I don't think so. We're going to get to the 30. Maybe we're going to get to the 15. So what's the opposition of that? 50-50. So do we have the players that are using 50-50 as much? Maybe Iniesta was one of those guys. Maybe Xavi was one of those guys. I also don't think there is not too many of them. Those are the examples that we can all know. But having the strong equality in the left and right foot on the top level doesn't exist as much either. So we are aware that the 90% of the players out of these 60,000 professionals playing in UEFA are using the better foot 60 to 70% and the weak foot 30 to 40%. So these guys over there, it's a God-given talent. And I've been, I don't know, you've a couple of times, you've seen probably Messi playing live. I think one of the problems for the father or for the coach to bring a player on the stadium where Messi plays, you know, when you see him playing like that, you know, standing over there around the circle line in the pitch, and then when he gets the ball, he does the job incredibly, but pretty much this is not the school. You want to show the kid, listen, this is how you should play, how you should train, because those things don't fall in the place of the procedure. Those are the 90% of the players. He just falls out of criteria, or a lot of them falling out of criteria because of the God-given talent they were given. And there is 10 of them, or 9 or 11. 90% of the players that are playing 60 to 70% with the bigger foot, better foot, and 30, 40%. That means we still have to have some kind of the equality with their development in the technical ability of Croatia. Is Modric one of those guys? No, he falls into this area. Is Isco one of these guys? He's falling into this area. We can go name by name. We would agree, because we tried to do it. Maybe we made a mistake a little, but not a whole lot. This is the general area as it is. In the national development camps in Croatia, we're trying to analyze their identity, their talent, and also trying to identify the percentages of the national genetics about the talent regarding the better foot and the weak foot in that regard. In a development program, I think you guys already seen millions of versions. Everybody knows at the age of U9, 7, we started with the technique, and then we go into dynamics, and then we go into tactics, and then tactics kicks in at the age of 14, 15. You know, I think you've seen all these things many times. This is the concept that we have in the book that you've seen. But lately, I've started to recognize, started to see that in this area, in the early phase area, in the U7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I'm seeing more and more only decision-making drills before the prior formation of the skills in this area. So decision-making drills in this area early were taking place in Croatia. I corrected it here in the country, but I'm seeing also in the world, in some even serious institutions, the decision-making things are coming very early, also trying to say with them, we're gonna develop the technique to solve those problems with. Now that intrigued me a lot, very much, and I wanted to analyze the problem a lot, and I want to actually share it with you. It's a Croatian aspect also as well, but I think it's very, very important for us to actually go deeply into the analysis. Is this correct, and how correct is? Why technical formation must come before decision-making drills? Development concept, technique, tactics, we know about this, right? Coordination, speed, everything is okay. Strength, endurance should be here. Animation and learning in this part, learning in group here, competition and team pressure, everything. So competition should start, as it does start in the U15s, where you should be caring for the points. Here, yes, you can compete, but you shouldn't be caring for the winning as much as you should be caring, because you got to be adjusting the players for the tolerance to the pressure, because if you lose a game here, it shouldn't be the same as you lose the game right here. Technique and tactics around formation of the programs, application of the programs in the conditions that are not as situational, application of the programs in competitive conditions and situational conditions, periodization in conditions, periodization, and technique, dynamics, functionality, Why I'm saying this way? Everybody knows about these structures, everybody's having them, everybody's following them, but then yet we see in this area, we go with the decision-making drills. So for me, this part is extremely important, formation of the technical and tactical programs starting as early and going up until the U15s. Even Arsene Wenger said a couple of times, whatever you've learned in the technical area up until the U15, 16 is pretty much 99%. So for me and for us, being the technical nation, being the people that a lot of people is looking up to and try, listen, Croatia plays football. I wanted to analyze really why is this formation here so important, and how come all of a sudden there's decision making coming in this area before prior formation of the technical programs that we have. Let's go into the science a bit. I think we're all in a coaching job here, but I think we're all common people with a common mind and with common intelligence, so we can understand what the facts are. The Oxford University research a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, said that the memory is divided in a conscious memory, subconscious memory, unconscious memory, and that the memory for skills is falling into the unconscious memory placement. So the memory for the skills, they didn't say which skill, no archery or ball handling or here or hockey there or soccer here. Memory for skill falls in the unconscious level of the memory formation as a procedural memory. That means that we consciously think about what we want to do, our decision, but we subconsciously use the skills to do it with. Yes, we see the decision, but we don't think, and we shouldn't think, and we can't think, and we won't think about the skills that we're doing and using this decision with. That means if we're making a decision before we form something already, we are subconsciously using a skill that we don't have already formed. Now, the question is, can we form the skill? Can we form the skill using the decision before the prior formation? I'm hoping I'm not being too complicated, but it's extremely important, and I just want to clarify this, and it's going to be very interesting for you. Let's go step by step. Every technical skill, every control, every pass, every shot, no matter which level it's a motor action. Every motor action forms a motor program which is called engram. Those engrams are a pattern of cognitive information inside the brain. They're also called a memory trace, and roughly in a structure between the neurons, and those are the neurons on the brain surface, they are getting connected. So every movement, every motion, every skill, they form a pattern of the neurological connection called engram, also called a memory trace, also a pattern of the cognitive information. They wouldn't be this important if the connections called synapses, and connections between the neurons are called synapses, if the connections between two neurons, synapses, weren't responsible for the brain, for the memory formation. So changes in the strength of the connections between neurons, synapses, in the brain is how the memories is formed. We know that the skills go into the subconscious memorying. We know that a change of the strength of the synapses is responsible for the memories that are being formed in connection with morphological changes. Chemical and morphological changes are taking place in the synapses to changing the strength. So the stronger the connection between the neurons in the pattern is, the better the program of the skill is. I hope I put it in nice words in English so it's going to be understandable for everybody. After this, we're going to slowly touch the motor habit, because it moves on from the initial control and change of the program. So this is the pattern. This is our pattern. The learning process. Here we're coming to the very important things. The learning process, engram formation and strengthening the synapses connection, happens only with active and conscious involvement, repetition of the person. Only active and conscious. So you got to be focused and you got to be thinking about what you're doing. Observation is considered when you're doing something not being focused. That means when you're doing a small-sided game at the age of 7, you're not focused for the technical element you're doing. You're observing something else. Observation of activity without active muscle control doesn't result in learning. And in order to be precise and accurate, action has to be isolated for complexity. It goes even this far, and you might be shocked right now, that in the repetition of the precise pattern, the inhibition of the muscles which do not consist in a pattern is just as important as an excitation of the muscles which participate in the pattern. That means we should isolate the muscles that are trying to disturb the technical element. When we have a small-sided game at the age of 7, there is so many other factors that are disturbing the peace, the inhibition of the muscles, the slowing of the prevention of the process, reaction function, that are disturbing the stable repetition of the muscles. In order to have the repetition in this situation, we should be having the precise repetition, strengthening the synapses, making the program. If we are changing, if there are things concerning, we're going to be in this situation using this neuron, next time this neuron, next time this neuron, and we're going to have a total mess. And all these quotes, all these citations are being taken from the scientific words. If the trained and performed activity has been precise, the engram model will be precise. If the trained and performed activity was rough, the engram model will be rough and imprecise, and therefore unreliable technique we're going to have if we don't form the program in the unstable conditions before that. Now we go on one step more. In the case of the memory improvement, we are specifically referring to exercise, planned and structured compared to unstructured physical activity. Biological, chemical, morphological changes are taking place in between two neurons. This is synapse. Those are the neurotransmitters. The number of the neurotransmitters, proteins, is enlarging. The connection, the biological connection is becoming, and this is the key of the motor learning. This is the key of the motor learning, and the synapses with the neurotransmitters released, they're kicking in more and more if you have the stable repetition of the given engram giving motor skill before you actually want to start in it. Let's get the example of the football. Oops, sorry. One turn with the ball. Nice. So that was one. The turn with the ball, one motor program. One more time. Sorry. So one more time. Turn with the ball, motor program, nice and accurate, not rough and smooth. Take a look at the other one. Take a look at this player here. The same element. Tip, tip, tip. The same element. 1, 2, 3. As an example. The smoothness, the cleanness, the roughness of the program, you can see on each video how cleaner, how efficient, how rough it was, because it's a subconscious reaction. The player is not thinking about this, as well the player before is also not thinking about this. So we have the procedure that obviously the synapses, the strengths of the connections, the formation of the motor program of every skill, just as well on this skill, because this player is thinking about the decision just as well the other player. Yes, he has a decision, what does he want to do? But he's not, he shouldn't be, he can't. He doesn't think about the skill he does it with, because it belongs to the subconscious level of the functioning. So if you want to do the formation of the programs, why do we do it in this area? Because the correlation between the coordination and the skill acquisition and the level of the performance of the certain skill is enormous correlation. And this is why we have the technical development here. We're getting close to the end. So if we want to go in the formation, we have the isolation of all the muscles that are trying to disturb. Sorry. We're trying to isolate all the muscles that are disturbing. We got to go this far to trying and think about every move, because brain is forming the connections, and we do it millions and millions and millions of times in order to form a stable program that is going to be subconscious, that the players are not going to be thinking later on. These are young players. talented or not, or less talented, but they're not thinking about, they're going to be placing it in their program. Now, once we have already done and formed the program, we go to the second stage where we go in the application of the programs in the conditions. Application of the programs in the conditions, that means that we have formed the programs, but we want to apply them in a situational circumstances, but they're not as competitive, they're easier. And that's called formation of the motor habit, and it's called corrections and the adjustments. And here we're going to reveal the whole issue with a thing like that. Motor habit, it's a formation of the motor habit, says that in the base of the motor learning is a comparison between what is expected and what has achieved. So player goes out on the field and he has this program, he knows all these skills, but something else happens on the field. The new information of the parameters of the movement come to the brain through peripheral input and compare between what happened and what was supposed to happen. This comparison enables corrections in the adjustment. And this is the key sentence here. The better and stronger the motor engram which memorized and stored, the less corrections and easier adjustment to new spatial and dynamic circumstances will take place. If we don't have that, we will not be able to adjust. And then you move it on with the next drill. So the same drill, those are ease conditions though, of the same element. There's the opposition player there, 1v1. In the ease conditions, he's trying to take a ball away, but he's letting him go away with this, right? Slowly, you're making him 1v1 active. But the major part is we have to have the technical ability element done to the perfection. We want to place it and have the strong connection of the synapses in the brain, and therefore having the strong skills out of that. Let's go back quickly with the distribution that we've had. This 1% of the players, they have enormous talent. And we still know the comfort zone out of whoever's got a strong comfort zone, and we all have our comfort zones. That means out of 10 times you're going to choose 8 or 9 times decision that is your comfort zone. There's 10 players on the planet that their comfort zone is enough to take care of the problems on a big level. This is the population of another 20,000 players. This is the population of another 30, and this is the 60,000 players that are not as talented. And that means they have certain gaps in the knowledge, and then we got to do some adjustments, and population of talents fill the gaps with the knowledge, because we know that there's 30 to 40% of the use of the weak foot on the top level as well. And when we have decision-making drills, if not prior formed, it will not develop proper initial stable technique program. It is a discoordinated action. It's not a discoordinated action, but for the purpose of the program formation, it is a discoordinated action. It will not create, and we will have the handicapped players later on, literally, for the technical ability. Yes, it will develop functionality. Yes, it will develop creativity. Yes, it will develop better decision-making. And we in Croatia don't have anything. On contrary, we have a lot of things for it, but take a look at the research, and we have a few slides more and we're going to be done. Research that took place a couple of years ago that was analyzing a constraints-led perspective to understanding skill acquisition and gameplay, a basis for integration of motor learning theory in physical education. Couple of quotes from this research. In physical education settings, this process involves learning to adapt movement patterns. Nowhere in the research you're going to find it forms or it creates movement patterns. It adapts already formed movement patterns to achieve consistent movement outcomes in the face. The second sentence, during skill performance, it is important to consistently repeat capacity to invent novel adjustments and adaptation to solve typical. So again, adaptations. There's no word about formation anything. The formation of anything can lead to the spontaneous formation of movement patterns. However, the author says, and it's a very respected research, the term spontaneous is used here should not be taken to mean that the coordinated pattern is randomly constructed or there are infinite ways that the body can organize itself by itself. Any coordination pattern that emerges during practice and learning is a function of mechanical principles and structure of human movement systems. Yes, we need that, and it happens here. This is the application of the technical and tactical programs in situational conditions, and this is where the decision-making process have to kick in. This is where it happens, not here in this area in the beginning. Just to prove that, in the book that you've seen, the periodization of decision-making starts at the age of your 13, of the 14, of the 15, of the 16, 17. We have plenty of time to do that. If we start with decision-making drills without prior, unless extremely talented, and we've seen the number of the extremely talented ones, how many of them there is a big chance that we'll stay technically inadequate and incompetent later. And this is my sentence at the end. If you see or know of the institution, club, or a program that is too early starts with decision-making, please raise a concern, because at the end, your players will pay the price. There is so much time for the team tactics. There is so much time for the group tactics. There is so much time for periodization, for the competition, for the application of everything. Let's go everything where we should go with these things. Let's use this space, because this is the most sensitive area for the basic learning, and not go too early with the decision-making drills, because we're going to be developing the incompetent technical players, not the competent players to the level. Thank you very much. I don't know how long it took, Saul. I was really getting myself into it a bit. I hope it
that way. It was worth it, Romeo. It was fantastic. As usual, detail to the next level. Thanks very much. It's in here. It was on your link, but not to worry. Okay, so look, thanks very much. That was fantastic. So now, guys, up to you, the questions. I've just got a quick question. There's loads of questions. So what do you like, for instance, Romeo, like an under-9s training session? What percentage of that would be unopposed in your opinion? Should be
the percentage. Listen, the percentage of we have to give the kids the playing time. They got to play. Why? They got to apply the knowledges. Yes, you working on the, let's say roughly, we've gone half and half of the duration of the training, because just recently we did analysis also as well. Kids have been playing 50 years ago, they've been playing outside, or 20 years ago, been 7 hours outside their house playing. Now they're 2 hours outside, 5 hours inside on the YouTubes and all these things. So we don't have too much time on the training sessions to actually utilize and train, because it's just restriction of the time. So we went half and half. Roughly half of the training was development, skill acquisition, and half of the training was the playing time, where the kids are applying the learned knowledges. However, as soon as the coach see that the kids are going into the comfort zone, which is not correct, and they're using the wrong technique to solve the problems on the pitch, they should be stopping this and having the drills that are going to be educative for the kids to actually learn the technical elements.
Fantastic. I say, so we've got lots of questions coming in. Here's a good question from Hampkick. He said, what exactly do you mean with decision-making drills?
I'm saying what I'm trying to say, when I see the kids at the age of U7 or U8 to U9, when the goal is going to be to find the third player, when the goal is going to be to find the gap, when the goal is going to be to solve a tactical problem at the early age, and then based on the research, it's not because I'm saying it, it's just like based on the scientific research, the comfort zone is a choice over 90%, because it's our comfort zone. And the kids at the age of U7, U8, they're choosing the technical abilities they're having, or they're not having, and mostly they're not having, to solve the problems. And they're going to be choosing a decision which is their comfort zone, which will not be biomechanically, even later on technically, adequate to solve tactical problems on the field. Whereas prior formation of the abilities will give them, empower them, giving them the choices. And for me, the crucial sentence was, as firm as as strong as possible as you form the technical element, this much easier is going to be for you to later on to adjust to the given circumstances. Because believe me, many times I've heard on the conferences around, it's football, it's specific activity. But tell me, isn't it basketball specific activity to football? Isn't swimming also specific towards volleyball? Isn't high jumping specific to swimming? Everything is specific to anything, but the brain works on the same exact way when we're talking about the skill acquisition. The skill acquisition period is when we do that, and the skill acquisition period has to isolate the muscles that are disturbing the proper biomechanical development of the movement of the given thing.
So why do you think so many even federations have gone down that route of neglecting technique and going to decision making?
Honestly, Saul, I'm shocked. I mean, I'm shocked. I was hearing all over the place. Now you go. First of all, I would like to see the evidence. I would like to see the scientific evidence. Scientific evidence is not the fact football is specific activity. Because I will say, okay, volleyball coach is going to say volleyball is specific activity. The guy jumping from the cliff is going to say, no, this is specific. And it is, they're all right. But the motor functions and the motor skills are formed in the same exact way, no matter. And to be honest, I'm surprised how much of a tolerance we have to tolerate I'm not going to say the lack of knowledge, but don't get me wrong, the football crime that we're doing over the kids, because we don't have any evidence that those kids, the football evidence that I want to see is how many players you produced on a high elite level. And believe me, there's always going to be this guy that has extreme talent, and there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 5, or 10 of them in the world. And we all know about him. And that's going to be the excuse. This is not excuse. It's an example that is confirming the rareness. So I'm really curious how much people and institutions and coaches are allowing the coaches to go this early in decision making with the serious institutions. I'm surprised. I'm shocked.
Well, here's a question from Diogo. It says, do you have any data about the transfer of to the game of isolated technique to the game? Do you have any data about the transfer to the game of isolated technique, basically? So this is obviously what the people are saying, that when you train in games and you're more chaos, it's more transferable to a game. He's asking you, do you have any data about the transfer of isolated technique to the game?
What I would when you say data, like you got to be specific. What kind of data you're looking at? Like what is that? What is the data? A score? A good action?
I suppose I suppose he's alluding to evidence. Where's the evidence that transfers
evidence?
To the game?
There's the evidence. The evidence is that the brain is working as they're supposed to work when you go in a skill acquisition. It gets in the subconscious level. All these things that I just said, I specifically made citations and quoted the scientific researchers. I would like to see the evidence of the player production on the senior level with the kids that have been starting, because again, you cannot develop stable technique in the unstable environment. And when you go too early, before you prior formed development technique, you cannot develop a stable program. And you see how rough the turn of the player was. Okay, evidence. Now we got to go, and I am planning to actually, because it's picking up so much that I'm not frustrated, because it's 100% true. I would like to actually, believe me, I would like to get the open discussion, open debate of somebody that is preaching or proposing this way of education, starting with the decision making with the kids this early, to have the arguments why. And I would like to be on the other side.
Interesting. And here's a question from Kareem. Can we use rondos for U7 to U11s? They can improve technically if we increase the space in 4v1s, for example. So would you like using rondos under foundation phase?
I mean, rondos. It's also, again, it's a way of the small side. Yes, when you play 4v4, it's also a way of a small-sided game, and the kids should play. I'm not saying anything kids should play. They should apply the knowledge they work on. But let's try to be smart and clever, and to see that the stream of the development of the players, the development phase, is a long-term development. We will not develop the player only at the age of 7. We will not develop a player only at the age of 17. We're going to develop a player at age 7, 8, 9, 10, 10. So everybody has their specific role into the age structure they have. So rondos, yes, you can do it, but you will not develop complete technique with this drill only. You will have to isolate and stabilize the technical element in order to ensure the stable repetition, to form the stable connections between the synapses. And you won't do it in a rondo. In a rondo, you will develop the peripheral vision, you will develop the creativity, but you will not develop the technical element. So if you want to do that, okay, you do it. But if you want to develop technical element, then don't do it.
What's your thoughts then on people like overusing that maybe? So trying to get the under nines to play like Barcelona and just focusing on rondo work and positional play and that sort of thing.
No, that won't work. That won't happen unless you have a new Messi there. And believe me, I would like to see. I mean, you can solve maybe a homework for you for the next one. You're smiling, and I like that. So let's say you take the video, and I've seen the video when Messi was 10 years old. He was playing with guys over there somewhere in the neighborhood in Rosario in Argentina. And okay, this is the way. Probably you're going to be able to recognize if you ask those guys, make a couple of phone calls. Okay, who are the players that played this game with Messi when he was 10 in Rosario on this video footage 15 years ago? I would like to see where those players are. Is it about the playing performance of this, or is it about something else that Messi had and nobody else did have? So yes, we had some enormous playing time. And I'm going to repeat one more time. When I was a kid, I was out on the streets 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day, from the age U7 to the age U19. But nobody ever, anytime, corrected any of my things that I did. Is it possible that all my comfort zones were good? Is it possible that I only developed good things? Is it maybe possible that I was developing maybe even bad habits? And now I'm aware, yes, I'm left-footed, and I belong in this group of the people 9 out of 10 comfort zone decision making. In my case, with my talent, this left foot is not enough to solve problems on the big level, and that's why I didn't succeed. In Messi's level, it was enough, more than enough.
We had a question from Andrew about 1v1. He was asking maybe if you liked it or not, but tell us about 1v1 and the importance of it and why it's useful.
It is unbelievably useful. Technical individual formation enables again the mental program formation of every technical skill. However, as a coach, if I see that the player, again, having in mind that we have always our specialty. So every player, no matter how talented or not talented are, they're always going to have their better foot. I have my better foot, you have your better foot. And every player is going to have their better foot. Very least number of the players having 50-50 equality of the players. So not few players are always going to go, okay, this time I'm going to make a dribble 1v1 on left side. Next time I'm going to be on the right side. We're always going to have our specialty. So yes, we have to encourage the specialty. However, we have to be careful because being on a coach on a higher level, when you play against Barcelona, let's say, you're not going to play. We're not going to play, but let's say if you played. What are you going to look for? You're going to look for the eventual potential deficiencies and the problems they have. We have a situation where this player, we're not going to name him, he always go 9 out of 10 times the good. So we're going to try to use the problems that they have. The same thing when we develop in a 1v1 situation, let's try to develop the variety of the options because later on the coaches are going to try and going to aim the deficiency you have, the weakness you have, not the strength. Strength is going to be something that they're going to try to avoid. They're going to go after your weakness, and let's try to annihilate those weaknesses as much as we can.
Interesting. So, and here's a good question from Craig. He says, if you have a group of players from under 14 to under 16 that have had poor technical development, can a lot of technical focus at that age correct some of that deficiency?
Yes, you can. You can listen. You can correct even if they're at the 18, even if they're 19. You can correct it. Not as much, unfortunately, as you can do at the age of U7, 8, 9, and 11. That's why I'm always focusing at this age because the correlation between coordination, it's the most sensitive phase. At the age of 14, force them as much as you can. I'm going to say you're catching the last train because at the age of 16 is going to be unfortunately big time too late for something serious. Like yourself, I've really traveled the world, really been all around, and I'm getting all these tactical solutions at the age of 9, 10, 11, 12, and then the kids come at the age of 16, and we have a basic problem. Why? Because they have creativity, but they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the tool, they don't have the skill to actually take advantage of this creativity they're having. So if he notifies that those guys are actually being poor, listen, get on it as much as you can with a stable repetition as much as you can. Get away. I'm not going to say get away. Don't get me wrong. I belong to the nation that is technically super dominant on the planet. So yes, we like to play football. Yes, we want to be creative. I'm not the guy that's going to be, okay, kick the ball out. No, play the football. But let's play the football when it's supposed to be played. When it's supposed to be developed, let's develop it. When it's supposed to be psychological, let's be psychological. So let's do everything when it's supposed to be done.
Fantastic. Here's a question from Andrew. He said, do players in Croatia under 12 play multiple sports? So tell us a little bit about multi-sports and the importance of doing other sports in football, other than football.
A lot of them still, yes, and I encourage that as well. Obviously, you're developing the other muscle groups, early focus. The same question a couple of times I had, when are you gonna be specifying and defining the positions on the field the players are gonna have? Are you gonna know right away at the age of U7 that the player is gonna be fullback, or are you gonna know that the guy's gonna be striker at the age of U9? The same things, no. The answer is no. So yes, I would encourage multi-sports involvement up until the football is also getting more and more serious. At the age of 10, 11, 12, it's getting really, really serious. So I would definitely encourage the multi-sports involvement.
Grace got a question here. He said, at the start of your presentation, you were talking about passion and desire and commitment, etc. Then most of your presentation was about technical and tactical. But he's eager to know how you develop those personality traits, or is it just a recruitment?
Well, listen, if I was as I was technical director of federation, if I was telling the whole presentation about the bloody heads, you'd say that I'm not spot on. So I just want to say that I think you're also well aware that if you don't have this personal traits, if you're extremely talented, you will make it, but you will never make it. When I say make it, you will never make it to the top level if you don't have this passion to go with your head on somebody else's cleats. And that's why I was bringing this up, just to give you the importance. Even in the Croatian, okay, they say you guys were playing. Okay, everybody's going to play for their country in the World Cup. It's no brainer that everybody was passionate in the World Cup because it's the top of the world. But I want to see the guys that are going to be playing passionately when nobody's watching. There's this old saying, the champions are made and when nobody's watching, not when everybody's watching. So in this situation, yes, I was talking about the technical, because we talk about football, but I also wanted to give a heads up how important that is, that no matter how technical, no matter how skillful you might be, if you don't have those personal traits. And the second part of your question is, how can you develop those? Unfortunately, there are genetic limitations, just as well it is to the speed, just as well it is to the aggressiveness, just as well it is to the tolerance to the pressure, just as well it is to do a lot of those things. Yes, you can improve 5, 10, 15, 20%, but there's a saying, you can never make a tiger out of you name it. So unfortunately, you got to be looking into these, because it's a parameter, it's a talent identification criteria that has to be there. Let's tick the box. Okay, this guy is aggressive, this guy has it, let's appreciate it, right?
Question from Barry down in New Zealand. Hello, Barry. What techniques do you use to keep young kids engaged when doing isolated practices? So he's saying, is it more difficult to motivate the players, the young players, when doing isolated work rather than game?
That's exactly also one of the arguments why we want to keep the kids. We want to keep the registrations, we want to keep the numbers, and that's why we're going to get the kids playing football. And that's why I specifically said we have to have the personality of the animating coach to be knowledgeable, first of all, but also to be psychologically this educational, to motivate the kids to stay there on the field, not playing only. And believe me, maybe one of the next webinars, we can come up with millions, or not millions, but dozens of the drills where kids are gonna be very entertained, very focused, having, let's say, fun, if the fun is one of the primary focuses, and sometimes it is. However, they're also going to play in the second game of the second part of the training. Yes, with a knowledgeable trainer, and you have your parents. Okay, I didn't say the parents. Parents are a very important component in Croatia as well. The parents also feel and see, because they live with you. Those players are staying with you for an hour and a half. Out of 22 and a half hours, they're with their parents. So you want to have the connection, you want to have the buy-in with the parents, so they also understand the importance of the part of the skill acquisition. Because at the age of U7, they don't have to know what's going to be there waiting for them at the age of U17. You as a coach have to know. You know, you do this because you're going to need this later. You don't need it now, but you're going to need it later. And you got to be this eloquent, this adequate to be able to teach the kids at the age of U7, keep them there. Again, I'm not going to go back to this bloody head, but you want to see this passionate moment, and believe me, you can see that in the kids' eyes, even at the age of U7.
Question from Andy. He said, would you change the balance of isolation stroke skill acquisition time in a practice if your small-sided games weren't showing good quality technique?
If the small-sided game wasn't showing the good...
Yeah, so if you're having a small-sided game and it's the players haven't got good technique, would you spend more time then on working that technique?
Of course, in the next second.
Tell us a little bit about we've got a lot of people who are from USA on the webinar, and they follow My Personal Football Coach. Tell us about what's your experience in America, and maybe why, because obviously I know you spent a lot of time there, maybe why they haven't developed a good quality team to challenge for the World Cup.
A very good friend of mine, Tom Byer, our mutual friend. He's a man that's one of the number one person that is encouraging and preaching and proposing the environment, the food, the culture. It's not there to the extent where it should be, where kids are not having it in the genes as much as they maybe have it for their, because if we really, everything is explainable. Now we can really drag it on. It's going to be interesting for the people. Why? How come the white bears are white on the North Pole? Nobody painted them white because the adaptation was there. How come the people are somewhere they're black? How come everything is adaptation? So the environment adapts to the trigger, to the something, to the pressure, to something that somebody else does. In USA. Other than people that are coming in, I'm Croatian. Pulisic, he's a Croatian in the background, and he's the captain of the U.S. national team. I know his grandfather very well. I spoke with his grandfather and his dad regarding potentially bringing him to Croatia. We didn't succeed. Everything is well. He chose U.S. He was born there. But if we have a problem with the lack of environment, a lack of culture, as we do in the States, we can't allow that the association, that the national institution for the player development is proposing the decision-making at the age of U7, 8, 9, and 10. You're not going to develop your players over there. Believe me, you will not develop your players over there because you're going to be lacking the basic skills. You're going to be, I have a saying in Croatian, I'm not exactly sure what it sounds in the States. You're going to be coloring somebody else's eyes. You're going to be trying to make it nice packaging. We're going to play like Barcelona. But eventually, at the end of the day, you will not develop your players because you will not developing something what you're entitled to do at this given age. So I have on the other side, I know I've seen a lot of clubs. a lot of small centers and environments that are focusing the skill acquisition focus in the proper age and leaving a decision making for the ages 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. You have 10 years or 8 years of the time to make those decisions. And believe me, they're going to be so much better and greater because you're going to be skillful by that time. Whereas, you're going to maybe have the vision, but you will not have the ability. And that's what I'm worrying about. I'm not going to go in a political thing. Don't try to put me in there, even though I know all the people there. I don't agree with that. And I was on the talk over there. I don't agree with that. Specifically, I don't agree with that. And it's not that I think, I know it's not going to pay the effect in the future. And somebody else is going to pay the price.
Question here from Leuven. This one here is one about the research. Top level presentation, Romeo. My question is regarding the development of unconscious decision-making within the development of technical isolated practices. Do you suggest that the muscle memory is interrupted on technical execution? Have you asked what Barcelona would say about this process of development? I am wondering, can you coach isolated technical development with unconscious development of decision-making, i.e. multi-directional isolated practices?
Excellent questions. I don't know who asked it, but that's an excellent question. And we can really go in. Yeah. I'm sorry?
That was Leuven.
Okay.
His name is Leuven,
Hi, Luben. First of all, we have to be careful about, and I'm glad he brought it up because I still see we have a bit of a misunderstanding here. We have a talent, and we have a talented player. And when you say Barcelona, in the Barcelona, they're rolling the globe, and they're choosing the player from here, and they're going to be choosing the best talented players. So the best talented players, they already have talent. What is a talent? It's a motor program. What is a motor program? It's already formed program in their head with the talent they have. So obviously, in these circumstances, you're going to speed up process. You're not going to go isolately because those guys, however, have on mind the fact that there is only 10 players or 15 or maybe not even this much that can solve the problems on a top world football level only using one foot. And when somebody's saying, Messi did it or Hazard did it, okay, name 100 of those out of the 60,000, out of the 265 million people that play soccer. So our talent is not going to be, unfortunately, unless you're extremely talented. And I respect that also. If it's extremely talented, let him do it. But if it's not this extremely talented, and believe me, there's not this many extremely talented ones on the planet. Yes, there are, but not this many. Let's try to fill the gaps in the knowledge. This is the answer for the question number one. The answer for the question number two, how do you develop decision-making at the same time as a skill acquisition? You are not. You are focusing on the skill acquisition, and after you have learned the skill acquisition program, after you have specialized it, after you have perfected it, and you have time of 4 or 5 years in the given time when it's a window for that, after this, you are focusing on the development of the decision-making abilities, creativity, which kicks in at the age of 11, 12, 13, 14, and on. So I'm not saying anything about the decision-making. I'm just saying, don't do it here, do this, and after this, at the age of 11. Now, most of the problems my friends from US or who are elsewhere calling me, okay, in Europe, we have a bit of a different situation because we have a different talent ID school system. That's all in England as well. People, good players at the age of talent, they come and then you focus and then it's easy to work in it. Sometimes coaches from the States come to Croatia, it's so easy to work with these guys. You have whatever they tell. Of course, because they're talented. If they're not talented, they got to be trained. However, the problem occurs, yes, at the age of 9, we want to do all these things. And then at the age of 14, we realize, as this guy a little while ago, he said, oops, I realize they don't have the capability to speed up and to keep up with the rest of the world that is there because of the technical ability they have. So we're mixing the apples and we have the same apples and the pears. Let's do the things when we're supposed to do. Let's give the kids the playing time at the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, because they gotta be applying the knowledge they're having. But if you're seeing that they're making the decisions on the field at the age of 9, using the wrong technique, stop them, correct them, isolate them, and work on the technique that they should be doing.
Interesting. There's another question from Diogo. He says, I'm from Brazil. Why Brazilian players are formed without any isolated sessions? Actually, there's huge discussions in Brazil about losing lots of our talents because too much isolated technique. What do you think about the street pedagogy?
Again, I would like to see all these videos when Neymar used to play at the age of 7, where the rest of the guys that were next to him. I would like to see that. Where are they playing? Are they all in Barcelona? Maybe only him. So if this is the reason why he's this player, because he played only on the streets. However, I said again, that I played myself in Croatia, not as much as in Brazil, you guys, but also I played in Croatia and Yugoslavia when I was a kid. I played 8 hours a day, every single day. Believe me, I had my ears pulled by my mom because I was outside for 8 hours, and I was developing my skills. I was developing only my comfort zone because nobody corrected me. There wasn't a coach because like in Brazilian streets, there's no coach directing the kids what to do. So yes, they're developing their technique. Yes, they're developing based on the scientific psychology of the player. 80 to 90% of the decisions are being taken by the comfort zone because this is my talent. So they have been developing their comfort zone. So their comfort zone, if it's sufficient enough because of the talent as Neymar had, then you end up where you end because you have all these things. but a lot of them don't have this much of the individual ability to overpass the, how many, I call it half talented kids because they have extremely good left foot or right foot only, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to survive on the professional level among these 60,000 professional players playing in Europe. So I would not agree that isolated technique, just again, about the ages, maybe we're not clear. I'm talking about the ages from 7 to 11 or 12. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking, you have from 12, you have another good 6 or 7 years to do anything you want to do regarding this. But let's make sure these kids are not handicapped technically. Let's give them the option B, because we saw just a little while ago that the 90 and more % of the players that are playing on a top level football are not using only their better foot. They're using mostly both feet that they have.
Fantastic. Here's a question from Ash Russell. He says, great presentation. He said, I was wondering which small-sided games would you use more with younger players training in Croatia as part of the 50-50 isolated practice to play? So what sort of games, conditioning games do you like?
I mean, I personally like the small-sided game a lot. When I was just an example, a couple of months ago, I finished my role as a head coach of Kuwait national team. Believe me, very talented population, football-wise, very talented population, skillful, obviously, to the extent, again, we come back to confirm this rule, because yes, they're talented, but they weren't talented good enough to cross the level to keep up and survive on a serious level. Yes, we were talented, but up until now, okay, no, we can't. Why? Because this talent is unfortunately not enough. So, and we used huge number of the smaller sided games, varieties. It's up to the coach. Once we learn the ability of the skill, once we have the skills, then the goal shouldn't be, okay, which kind of small-sided game would you use? Then the goal should be what goal you want to do, which purpose, what do you want to achieve on the training? Okay, today we want to penetrate there. Today we want to switch the side here. Today I want to go this way there. So I'm going to be using my skill to focus to solve the problem. One of my good friends here in Croatia, a couple of years ago, he said, listen, sometimes we have players that are struggling with the technique. No, we want to have the players that are struggling, quote unquote, struggling with the decision making, not even thinking about technique. So thinking should be something, and this is the goal. We want to have it subconscious, so we don't think about technique. Technique should be a tool. I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about this, and I'm applying my skill. However, it turns out later on that you see the solution, but unfortunately you don't have the tool to perform the solution with. You don't have the choice. You see the whole, but you have the ability to actually take advantage of this whole, because your technique doesn't allow it, because your motor program is too rough and too weak and too unreliable, especially when you get pressed with a couple of players. I'm not talking about the U9s. I'm talking about the 21s. I'm talking about the 29s. That's when it gets really serious, and that's when it gets really tough. And you're going to be thinking, now I'm going to control the ball here. No, you're not going to be thinking. If you don't have this subconsciously, forget about it. You're going to be thinking about the decision, but you're not going to be thinking about the tool that you have it. It's either you have it or you don't have it. If you don't have it, it's too late. At the age of 25, unfortunately, for the top level. That's why when it's not too late, at these ages, let's focus on the skill acquisition, because the contribution we can get in this development is enormous in these ages. And I still don't understand. And again, if we can organize a debate on whatever level with somebody really forcing this and giving the evidence, I would be glad to be on the other side to clear this issue out once for all.
I can organize that very easily. Believe me. We'll talk about that. But three more questions, Romeo. I want to get you to. I've got a question actually. How do you deal with the outlier? The player, we both worked biggest clubs in our country in terms of recruitment. How do you work with that player who at 9, 10, 11 is just better than every other player maybe, and who has that solid technical formation above his peers, and maybe the coach, how does the coach deal with that in terms of you're working on these drills?
This is the when I was structuring the demands of the system. I was structuring the player, the coach, the development, and the competition. The competition divides itself into two parts. The first one is the equal or as narrow quality as possible in the team, within the team that the players should have. That means that the difference between the weakest player and the strongest players should be as narrow as possible. Now, it's never going to be aligned because all the players are not going to be the same. However, if the difference between the top player and the weakest player or the group of he's the high peer, he should be moved up. He should be moved up to wherever, whenever there's a chance for him to be moved up. Why? Because he also subconsciously adjusts himself to the environment that he's much better. So we want to challenge him only. He has to be surrounded by 20 little, I call it in Croatia, he has to be surrounded by, Luka Modric. I'm going to tell you the example. Luka Modric was born 1985. In 1985 age group, there was 11 U17 national team players in his age group, and none of them succeeded, only him. So there was U17 national team of Croatia, 10 of the players from Dynamo were there, among them Luka Modric. But he was surrounded by 10 little lions that wanted to succeed every single day. So he wasn't this much better. He was better, but not this much, not even better this time, maybe. We can discuss that topic a little later because I had a privilege to be his coach for a year and a half when he was 17 and 18. He wasn't even this standing this much better, but on every training, it was a survival because he was surrounded by 15, 20 players over there. So if he is too high in a year time, as he really stood up, we moved him up. So if the player stays for too long in this environment, he's not going to improve. You got to move him up. If you can, of course, if you can.
What about sort of like Modric being a good one as well? I suppose the younger ones. What about if there's physically if they're under-maturated, if they're smaller as well? Would you ever consider that as an issue? So, if they're smaller than everybody,
I wouldn't. We have the story of Iniesta. Everybody knows about the story, right? If he is technically, if he has, we got to be careful about his. Obviously, you got to see what his parents look like, what his grandfathers look like, to see what is going to be the genetics potentially. But to develop what you're supposed to develop at his age, I wouldn't be worrying about what's going to happen. Listen, what's going to happen in 10 years? It's really hard to predict at the age of U7. However, you can get a feeling. I'm saying the final talent ID confirmations, let's put it this way, should be finished at the age of 14, 15, finished, already covered up. You can cover the talent ID knowledge pretty much on how this guy should be there. I'm not going to say it will be there, but should be there. Where even in Luka Modric's case, we weren't sure at the age of U17 that he's going to be what it was, even though at the age of 17. So if you have somebody at the age of U7 that is really having the height problems, the strength problems, but having other qualities, let's keep him around, especially if he has this bloody head mentality, I like to call it. If you see him, the guy's passionate, he's really after it, let's keep him around. Let's do his technique, let's do his agility, let's do his thinking, let's do the coordination. Maybe he's going to get to the age. He doesn't have to be 6 foot tall to be a soccer player. He can do it with 170 centimeters height. So I wouldn't obviously cut him because he's not tall enough.
No, but what I mean is maybe a player who's a bit smaller than his peers and is an under 10 who's smaller than everybody else. And then if he goes up, then he has that physical battle as well to deal with. So are there other ways to challenge the players rather than just playing them up? So maybe because a lot of clubs play players down because they're so small or under-maturated. So that's my question. Would you think maybe actually physically just get him in there and let them deal with it, or maybe other ways?
Listen, I would obviously go from the case to case. I wouldn't make it a definitive rule. If he the principles of learning fall into the following umbrella. The bar, the obstacle should be a little higher than what you should actually achieve. If the bar that you should jump over is way high, you're going to get intimidated. You're going to get disappointed. You're going to get your cut because you're going to see, okay, it's too hard. If the bar is too low, it's going to be too easy for you. So it's up to the coach, it's up to the academy director, it's up to the institution to detect whether they want to keep him there because he's struggling, so it's going to make sense struggling, or he's getting the intimidation because it's really too hard for him. I can't quite definitively answer the question, but generally, I would keep him there no matter if he's weaker, if his opposition allows him the tries from his side, so he's going to be actually hardly making it, if you know what I'm trying to say. If he's really this much of a difference, I would move him down. No matter even being the same age group, I would move him down.
Just two more questions. Last two questions. Just briefly, what's your thoughts on Bayern Munich closing the academy at 9 and 10 years old?
Closing the academy 9 and 10 years old. I don't listen. In there, the only I've heard of it. The only thought that came to my mind is I haven't gone deeper into the issue. I'm not sure how many players have they really produced. I know Dynamo. We played them in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League for the U19s. We beat them now over there, and we haven't even played with the strongest squad of the U19s we've had this year's Champions League for the U19s. We played them in the round of 16. We played against them, and Dynamo eliminated them. So I'm not saying anything. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying maybe they don't see the actual goal of having the academy, because they can just roll Barcelona, they can roll the globe, and they can take whoever they want to take it, wherever they choose to buy the player. But I don't agree with this. I would always the big names as Bayern definitely is. Maybe they financially calculated. Listen, the production of the players that we have done in the past doesn't justify the investments of this. I don't know, but for me, it doesn't make sense.
And last question, and the most important one from one of the people that said, your fantastic book, the Croatian Development Curriculum, said, where can people buy it? It said your website's sold out, so people want to know where they can buy your great book.
I was actually expecting this kind of question, and I'm glad you asked it. You reminded me of this. What I'll do, I will send you the Saul to you, if you don't mind. I will send you the link and the address and the location, because I literally transferred. I'm not going to say sold, but I transferred the rights. And I was in my own world with the national team, with the coaching, and I wasn't focused in the book. I know we have made only 500 copies of the English version, which is not a whole lot. And I know millions of people ask me for the book personally on the email. I will send you the information where for the people to get. You can post it and publish it if you want.
Pleasure, Romeo. Thank you very much. It's been amazing. Really, this has been one of the pinnacles for me in this webinar series so far. Thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sega. Keep it safe. All the best, everyone. Bye-bye.
And also, I'm going to take you up on the offer to bring you back on and have a little bit of a debate with one of the constraints-led guys.
If you want to organize anything, listen, let me know. I'm here.
Thanks very much, Romeo.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Just a reminder that all the webinars will go up live onto My Personal Football Coach. You can check them out again, and the slides will be there as well. Thanks very much. We're back next weekend. We've got crackers, 2 more next weekend and the weekend after. So thanks, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Good night.